This is Beering Ain't Easy. Do you spend all week thinking about what new beer you'll try next? Then yeah, this podcast is for you. Come join us while we try new beers, share our ratings, debate craft beer culture, and in the process, throw a few jabs at ourselves. So crack one if you got one, and turn it up.
Everyone, welcome to Beer and Ain't Easy with Adam and Drew. Say hello to the audience, Drew.
What's up?
Welcome to the inaugural, long-anticipated first episode of Beer and Ain't Easy.
Welcome, y'all.
All right, Drew, I'm sure the audience is dying to know, what is this podcast all about? Tell them what it's about.
This podcast is basically about drinking beer, rating beer, and providing unapologetic commentary on anything imaginable.
Everyone is probably sitting there wondering, what are these guys' qualifications to have a podcast talking about beer?
Yeah, I mean, we basically don't have qualifications. We're not experts, we're not brewers, we're not cicerones. We're basically two neighbors that like to drink a shitload of beer.
As far as my qualifications, there really are none.
Yeah, when I really think about us compared to other beer podcasts, when you hear our analysis on beers, it's completely impossible to be intimidated by us. When you listen to us, you're going to feel more confident as a craft beer drinker because you're going to feel, I'd say even probably more intelligent after listening to the level of commentary we have.
The one thing I can guarantee you about this podcast, listening to us will make you feel better about yourself. To be honest, I don't really want to listen to some people talk about the different flavor profiles in uber detail. I just want to hear people shoot the shit.
That's what we're here to do.
Can you tell the audience what we mean when we talk about rating beers?
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about ratings. So what will make this more enjoyable for you is probably downloading the Untapped app. But if you don't and you're anti-apps, just imagine a world where you rate every beer on a 5-star rating. So just calibrate yourself. You're drinking a beer, 1 to 5, 5 being the highest, go for it. But in all honesty, use the Untapped. It's a lot easier.
Untapped has changed my life.
You're like a recent convert to Untapped too. I mean, apparently this thing's been around since 2012, but when did you join that?
Not that long ago. I've been drinking beer for a long time, but I haven't been rating my beers and building up my beer resume for that long.
Beering ain't easy. I mean, I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, beering is not easy.
All right, let's quit fucking around and let's crack a beer.
Absolutely.
So, you want to tell us what we got today?
All right, so Saint Arnold in Houston. We're going to be drinking Noble Haze today. Hazy IPA. It's a limited release IPA. So let's see what it's working with.
And I cracked it all over my face.
That's what she said. So if you haven't realized this by now, Drew and I both have a really dry sense of humor. So it may sound like we're saying weird things to each other, but that's just how we are.
Absolutely. It's basically what drew us together, among other things.
Beer, primarily.
Right. How did I even meet you, man?
I was playing with my kids in the front of the yard, and I saw some bum walking down the street. I thought he was homeless at first. And then I noticed he had a daughter that was the same age as my daughter.
It's like love at first sight between those two kids.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I think what it developed that was kind of crazy to me is we started talking. We both worked in similar industries. Our kids became best friends. We started learning a little more about each other. Found out we both have a pretty impressive knowledge of 90s rap music, especially from the West Coast.
Oh, yeah. 90s gangster rap. Nothing gets better than that.
We were kind of on that path, and then all of a sudden there was beer. I kind of had that moment where I was like, did we just become best friends?
It was kind of weird, to be honest. Drew asked me to be his best friend. I told him I thought he was a fucking tool, and I didn't want to be his friend.
He still hasn't friended me on Facebook, that motherfucker. Are you even on Facebook?
I watch Facebook. I don't post Facebook. I keep it at a distance. I keep up with what's going on, but
You're more of a TikTok guy, right? You like doing those coordinated videos with the shimmy?
oh, yeah.
If I could only show you the shimmy video of Adam.
The shimmy. So speaking of shimmying, I think that when I watch a podcast, I'm always wondering what the people on the podcast look like. That's like my biggest question.
The first thing I think of is like most of the people on there, they got a face for radio. They don't have a face for TV. I feel like we fall in that category.
I feel like you fall in that category. I'm a slightly different than that category.
We're gonna
especially relative to Drew.
We're gonna like post a side by side, and we're gonna decide who looks more ready for TV.
I'm looking forward to those results. All right. So Drew is this 6 foot, 140-pound character. Little wannabe beard, salt and pepper.
I kind of think of us more as like Abbott and Costello. I'm kind of the skinny guy with some facial hair, and Adam's kind of the, big bone, plump gentleman with the top hat.
I don't know if plump is the right way to describe me. I'd call it stout. Stout.
I think what Adam means by that is he's drank too many stouts. High cal, buddy.
I think that's possible.
All right. Are we going to talk about this beer or what?
I'm not ready. We haven't built up enough anticipation yet.
All right. Well, let's at least talk about some of the things that we hold dear in this podcast that we're not going to back down on. I think number one is we're never going to try a beer before it steps into this podcast studio. It's the first time we've tried it. You're going to hear about it. You're going to hear our experiences with it. And that comes with some risk that we may rate it in a way that's how we feel at that exact moment. But it's called being genuine.
Every time I taste a beer on this podcast, it's going to be me getting intimate with that beer for the first time.
Oh, you like that, don't you?
That was just weird. Rule number 2 of this podcast. Every rating is going to be real, unbiased. Don't give a shit what anyone thinks about it. That's Adam and Drew's opinion of the beer.
That doesn't mean we don't still want free beer, though.
That is the primary. I guess there's really 2 primary reasons I'm doing this podcast. One is it gives me an excuse to get out of the house and drink beer and go find other beer. So when my wife is bitching at me for drinking too much beer, I just tell her I'm working. Reason number 2, trying to get free beer.
Absolutely. Life goals.
If you are someone who has the ability to give away free beer, you better listen very closely.
Holla at you, boys.
Holla at you, boys. All right, so Drew, let's talk about the process of rating beers. What do you do to rate a beer?
Well, I think it all starts with what the type of beer you're drinking. I mean, this is a Hazy IPA, which happens to be my favorite type of beer. So great beer for an inaugural episode. So I feel like you start with kind of a baseline of what you think is a solid beer, and then you kind of work your way up or down how it compares to the other beers you've had in that genre.
I also have a favorite type of beer, which is also a Hazy IPA.
Copier.
I'm going to get sick of you calling me a copier on this podcast.
Well, you're going to have to come up with some original ideas if you don't want that shit coming at you.
All right, so let's give the listeners a little bit of insight on who we are and what we're about. What are your top 3 favorite types of beers?
Shit. Well, obviously, Hazy IPA is one of them. I do love a good Pilsner. I feel like that would probably be number 2. And then I love coffee stouts. If it's not the summer and we're in Houston, Texas, and it is fucking hot right now. I mean, it's like sweat your balls off when you go out to your car hot. And, but it's wintertime. I'm a stout guy, especially a little coffee, a little hazelnut coffee stout. That's probably it for me.
This skinny little bastard doesn't know anything about sweating. Let's be honest.
What's funny is like if Adam's going to throw appearances up in here, but if you looked at both of us and you tried to guess who could run farther and faster, you'd be picking me. I mean, I guarantee it.
I'll bet you a beer on it.
But this dude runs marathons. So not only can he outrun me, but this dude can outsweat me.
Because it is hot as fucking balls outside.
Yeah, your Iowa body just can't handle this Texas heat.
Jesus Christ. So it's interesting to hear you talk about your 3 favorite types of beers. I would have expected cider to probably be your number one type of beer. Just, knowing you and kind of seeing what you're all about.
Oof, that one hurts. I mean, I don't want to offend anyone that loves ciders, but
you should be offended by that statement if you like ciders. If cider is your favorite type of beer, I'm not sure this is the podcast for you. I'm just laying it out there.
You're trying to scare off viewers here, or listeners. I guess they can't see us. It's probably better that they can't see us.
It's probably better they can't see you. Okay, so my turn to answer the question. So my favorite type of beer is hazy IPAs. My second favorite type of beer is brown ales. I am obsessed with brown ales. My third favorite type of beer, I would have to say, is IPA or double IPA.
Yeah. It's hard for me not to put them in there, but I do love a good crisp Pilsner. I mean, sometimes that just hits the spot for me.
So if this was the fall, would you have said Pilsner?
Probably not.
I think we're getting some seasonal bias right now. All right. Well, I think everyone's getting sick of listening to our bullshit. It's time to rate the beer.
Well, since we haven't actually talked about this beer, I'm just going to first say that it's a very drinkable hazy IPA. It's not super fruity.
Yeah, so as far as the taste, I agree. It's not a real heavy hazy IPA. It's a lot more drinkable than some hazy IPAs. I could easily take down 3 or 4 of these.
Very crushable.
Very crushable. Pretty tasty.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's good. We're going to have an episode later on our series where we're really going to delve into our favorite brewery of all time for making hazies, Spindletap.
There is a brewery in Houston named Spindletap that does nothing better than make hazy IPAs. And they are fantastic.
So when I put it on that scale, it's not, my favorite hazy in the world, but I still think from the drinkability, like you mentioned, I mean, most hazy IPAs, you can't drink a ton of them. Otherwise, you're just you're overloaded. But I feel like you're right. You could drink a lot of these, and so I'm a fan of it. And why don't you go for it?
I'm going to do the rating first. It's a good beer. It's not a great beer. It certainly is not a Spindletap hazy IPA. So I'm going with a 3.75. Really a good solid beer. Not the worst hazy IPA I've had. Definitely not the best. Would I buy it again? I don't know. Probably not, just because there's really good hazy IPAs out there.
And let's be honest, the reason you wouldn't buy it again is because you want to buy something that you haven't tried before. I mean, you're on that chase.
I'm on that chase.
I mean, the only beers that I'm buying again are ones where I'm going to be hammering a bunch of them down. Otherwise, specialty beers, you move to the next. It's a fault of mine.
For me to buy a beer again, it is going to be a goddamn good beer. All right, what's your rating? Come on.
So before
the audience hanging.
So before I jump into my rating, people don't understand, where's your baseline? What is a rating of a beer that you would buy again, and what is an exceptional rating for you? Because I feel like people on Untappd, there's some people, they'll rate, some beers are 5s and some beers are 2s. And it's like, I either hated it or I loved it.
Okay. So for me, the 5 does not exist.
It's a white unicorn.
It's a white unicorn. Someday it might be out there, but I mean, for me, why keep drinking if I have a 5? I'm chasing that 5.
It's a quest. Like, we want to leave that open for the perfect beer, and maybe we don't get that perfect beer till we die. But I mean, we're waiting on it.
It might be out there. I can't say if it's out there. If it's out there, I'm gonna find that son of a bitch.
For me, it's like 3.5 is my point of which I will buy that beer again. If it's less than that, no chance. If it's above that, maybe. But
hold on, time out. I'm calling bullshit. You ain't buying another beer if it's a 3.5.
You're probably right.
There is no way in hell you're buying another beer if it's a 3.5.
3.75 maybe.
Borderline.
There's some of them that I like that are right in that range. Easy drinkers.
But why would you buy the same beer if you just know it's a solid beer when that 5 could be out there?
That 5's out there.
That's exactly
I'm just
why.
crossing myself from my Catholic upbringing.
Anything but.
Oh, man. All right, so my scale is, I told you where I'd start for buy again, which debatable, 3.5, 3.75. What I think is an exceptional beer, 4.25 and higher, that's an exceptional beer. That sweet zone for me, and it's probably my average ratings, is around 3.75, 4. For this particular beer, I don't want to copy Adam.
But he's going to.
I'm going to copy Adam. 3.75 on this one, I agree. It's really drinkable, but it doesn't have so much flavor that it makes me want to come back again. But I did notice it comes in at a strong 8% alcohol, which I definitely wouldn't have expected with how easy it went down. So are you going to tell us your scale or what?
For me, a hazy, or really any IPA, it starts at a 3.75 and it goes up or down based on how it is. So like this one, nothing against this beer, but it's just like your average run-of-the-mill, tasty, not spectacular, hazy IPA. So for me, pretty much every beer has its own starting point, which I'm just giving you a little teaser right now because I think that's a future episode, is what is each beer's starting point. So
I like that. I like it.
That's about the amount of thought that goes into our episode planning. So that little bullshit thought just crossed my mind.
You saw a shiny object, didn't you?
I saw, yeah, pretty much. That's about how elaborate my thought process is. So
kind of caveman. I think that's a pretty good nickname for you for this show, is Caveman Adam.
Don't get me started. All right, so we've given you a teaser of what's to come on one impromptu future episode. What else is to come, Drew? I know the audience is dying to friggin' know what next. How long can I listen to these fucking idiots' bullshit? What else are they going to talk about?
Well, I don't want to show all our cards, but we got some good ideas on the table. I mean, not only are we going to drink beers and rate them, but we're going to do some blind tastings. We're going to have some guests. We're going to talk about our origins and our regrets on the beer quest. I mean, the thing is like the average listener could very well have a lot more experience in this area than we do. So we're inviting you guys to join us on this journey of enlightenment and beer enlightenment. Is that even a word? I'm just going to fucking throw that out there. But join us.
No, it's absolutely is not a word.
Yeah, but it is for this podcast. So join us on it. Give us feedback. You want to hear about something? You want to talk about something? Bring it on.
And with that, we're calling it quits. Beering Ain't Easy with Adam and Drew.
This has been a Beering Ain't Easy production at the Sesh Co-working Podcast Studio in Houston, Texas. Follow us on Facebook or Instagram. And if you want to see what we're drinking, our Untappd handles are Beering Ain't Easy Adam and Beering Ain't Easy Drew.